clear. Go.
In this week's Cyberpunk 2077 news, topics include more departures from the Cyberpunk 2077 team. CD Projekt Red won several accolades, additional information on the Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack, and some minor updates on Geralt from the Witcher franchise. The theme of departures from CD Projekt Red continues to be a point of concern for some. Previously, it was noted that Sebastian Stempien, narrative and setting director on Cyberpunk 2077, left for Blizzard Entertainment. Associate design director Kyle Rowley returned to Remedy Games, while Robert Ogwodzinski and Bjorn Jakobsen have also left CD Projekt Red. Frederick Schreiber, who is vice president at 3D Realms, hinted a few times in the past few months that a new first-person shooter based on the Quake engine was in the works, with top talent from the Quake modding community brought in for the job. The company hired Cyberpunk 2077's senior sound designer Bjorn Jakobsen to work on the project. As for Robert Ogwodzinski, he was a writer and narrative designer on Cyberpunk 2077 for the past 6 years, although it is currently unknown what his plans are. You will note for the most part there was no public outcry surrounding the most recent departures, most likely because Blizzard was not involved. As Mike Pondsmith previously alluded to, you should not look too much into which positions are currently being advertised or departures, as it does not necessarily reflect the current status of the game. CD Projekt Red have made new additions to their team, including level designer Manuel Mendelus and the new UK head of communications, Holly Bennett. People come and go, that is just the nature of the business. As reported by Stockwatch, the work on Cyberpunk 2077 continues to go smoothly. The Cyberpunk 2077 team consists of over 400 active people. This information was provided by Carolina Gnass from CD Projekt's Investor Relations Department. 400 full-time employees actively involved in the development is considered impressive. In August 2018, the team consisted of 300 to 350 people. Since then, CD Projekt Red has also expanded via a branch in Wrocław, Poland. For comparison, it is worth mentioning that at the peak of work on The Witcher 3, the CD Projekt Red team consisted of around 250 people. Witcher 3 for all intents and purposes turned out rather well, so those at CD Projekt Red firmly believe that Cyberpunk 2077 is in quite capable hands. What's more, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt has now become the top-rated PC game by players on Metacritic. The title boasts a score of 9.4 out of 10. Interestingly, the joint second place on the list is taken by the game's expansion, Blood and Wine. Speaking of The Witcher 3, the game won several Steam Awards this week, including Best Environment category.
From vivid landscapes lush with fields and forests to neon-saturated megacities, every single day members of CD Projekt Red's environment team pour their hearts into crafting amazing locations for the studio's games. Lucian, our environment art director, wished to say a few words and thank everyone who voted for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in the latest edition of the Steam Awards.
Chwilę, thank you for voting for our game.
Thank you for voting for our game.
Yes, thank you, Lucian, for finding the time to talk to us.
Jokes aside, it's incredibly inspiring to see everyone's effort noticed and appreciated. From all of us on the environment team, thank you for each and every vote. It truly means the world for us.
CD Projekt Red also won the Best Developer Award.
Hi there, just wanted to thank everyone for voting for CD Projekt Red at this year's Steam Awards. Being named Best Developer is truly an honor, but it's also a responsibility to always go the extra mile and to put it even more love into everything we do. We can't wait to present you more of our upcoming new title, Cyberpunk 2077, and I can promise that everyone, myself included, is super hard at work to make it happen. So thank you again and stay awesome.
Contrary to some negative news reports on CD Projekt Red being in trouble as a result of a couple of individuals leaving the company, financially, CD Projekt Red are going from strength to strength at the same time other gaming companies are seeing their value crash. Shares in CD Projekt Red recently increased by 9%, meaning the group's capitalizations equals around 18 billion Polish zloty, which is about $4.8 billion. Several financial experts believe that if Cyberpunk 2077 delivers on expectations, it could financially catapult CD Projekt Red amongst other titans in the gaming industry, such as Rockstar and Blizzard. Aside from the usual plagiarizing YouTube street rats, a new challenger has arisen for the title of Street Rat of the Week.
Here comes a new challenger!
The infamous UK newspaper The Express. Almost every article The Express publishes on Cyberpunk 2077 has the word release date within its title, which is comical at this point in time. The community team at CD Projekt Red answered a few questions on Cyberpunk 2077, which may be of interest, although nothing groundbreaking was revealed. CD Projekt Red stated that just because something was present in Mike Pondsmith's Cyberpunk 2020 does not necessarily equate to it being in Cyberpunk 2077. As part of the creative process and world building, CD Projekt Red definitely take inspiration from Cyberpunk 2020, but will interpret the content within their own vision. Once again, CD Projekt Red have neither confirmed nor denied that Ciri will be referenced in Cyberpunk 2077. Due to a clickbait article and hearsay about an interview with Cyberpunk 2077 game director Adam Badowski, quite a few people still have the misconception that Ciri will not be in the game, when in fact CD Projekt Red never answered that specific question. It is currently unknown if there will be references to Witcher characters. If there is a collector's edition of Cyberpunk 2077, which I believe there certainly will be, CD Projekt Red confirmed it will be available on all platforms. Some commentators were concerned about the PC platform not having one, which is somewhat odd given that in the past both Witcher 2 and 3 had a collector's edition for PC gamers. On the topic of music, and possibly a clue to who might have worked on the Johnny Silverhand soundtracks, such as Chippin' In, Brian Amancia and Melissa Reese are currently working with CD Projekt Red on his Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack. If you're not familiar with these names, they previously were members of Guns N' Roses and have worked on various game soundtracks including Mortal Kombat. However, aside from an old interview quote from early 2018, there have been zero updates on the Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack from either of them. When commenting upon Cyberpunk 2077 music, community manager Emilia Kowat said that while many at CD Projekt Red love synthwave, it has become too mainstream to strictly label it with cyberpunk as a genre. Hence why CD Projekt Red are marrying cyber with punk. These are CD Projekt Red's two main pillars for music direction. Cyber centers around sonic texture of the score. The sound palette is raw, dirty, synthesized, sometimes even futuristic. Punk is all about the attitude of music, rebellious, ballsy and impulsive. Night City shimmers with colours and the music will not be limited to one specific genre. Instead, Cyberpunk 2077 will draw from all sorts of styles to craft a unique mix that drives the narrative and provides additional layers of context to the story. For reasons unknown, apparently some Cyberpunk fans were concerned that Cyberpunk 2077 would be an Epic Games Store exclusive, following the decision by Deep Silver to make Metro Exodus an exclusive on that platform. Now, I don't know what sort of dwarfs these fans were taking, given that CD Projekt Red have a place called GOG to sell games, but just in case, they confirmed it will not be an exclusive to the Epic Games Store. CD Projekt Red also called out a street rat who misrepresented their words. Unsurprisingly, it was confirmed that there will be female companions. It makes one wonder who asks these questions. In this week's subscriber Q&A, Chumba forwarded a commentary piece on the association between Cyberpunk 2077 being a first-person game and the potential limitations of the current generation of consoles. While this is largely an opinion piece, it was interesting to read because it draws reference to the main playable character as being one of the most difficult to create in terms of performance. The crux of the argument is that by replacing the character on the screen with a weapon represents a significant reduction in the 3D geometry and textures that hardware needs to handle. Subsequently, these resources can be placed into detailed environments and other characters. The author believes that adding third person would require a significant amount of bespoke work on animation, resulting in a massive jump in hardware requirements due to having to render the main character on display at all times. Personally, I disagree with the notion that CD Projekt Red only adopted the first person route just to optimize Cyberpunk 2077 for the current generation of consoles, albeit the point of balancing resource allocation does hold some merit. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section.